Today we'll draw a winter landscape using chalk pastel. You'll need background paper, that is black construction paper, and this other white paper. One thing to note, when we're using the chalk pastel, we may not have time today to wash hands at the end of class. If you can prepare for that, that'll be good for you to anticipate. It's okay, a backup option will be using hand sanitizer when you get back to your regular classroom. So, to start out my landscape, I have my paper going side to side horizontally, and I want to draw a line a little lower than the middle. So if the middle of my paper is right here, I'm going to make a line that goes all the way across that's a bit lower than the middle. Then, above this, I'm going to make a few mountain shapes. And I'm going to start it to gently color in the mountains. I don't have to press really hard or color it in all the way. It actually is better chalk dust control wise if we just color it in lightly and then use our finger to blend it in. That'll help save the chalk pastels and keep it a little bit less messy. Once I've created my mountains, then I'll be ready to work on the sky. I color my mountains in just a little bit more so they look a little more solid and intentional. And I want to make sure they go all the way to the very edge so it looks like my picture keeps going even past the edges. Then I'm going to take this other paper and I'm going to rip along the edge to create an irregular line. So I'm going to hold with one hand and just sort of start to tear back and forth. I like to sort of wiggle my fingers as I do this to really create this uneven line. If I just randomly tear it, sometimes it tears in almost a straight line, which is not as interesting for what we're trying to do. And then I can put this little extra piece off to the side. This irregular edge is how we're going to create the Northern Lights effect in our picture. I'm going to use some different chalk pastels. You'll notice some of them might be sorted warm versus cool, and I'll try to keep them sorted like that to make it easier to use for other projects. Maybe for my first aurora color, I want to use some yellow and some green. What I'm going to do is I'm going to color on this white paper and then smooth it onto the background. When working on this or any other art projects, a good idea is to take your time and to try your best. It might be hard the first time you try something, but that's okay. You'll get better by practicing. In my case, I'm just making little bits of color, and I'll do that all the way across. Once I've got some lines across, I'll take my finger and smudge straight up to make the aurora effect. If you feel like your aurora design is a little bit too pale and not dark enough, while the paper is still in the same spot, I can check it. I think that's looking pretty good, but if I want it to be brighter in some areas, I can hold the paper down in the same spot and color again where I want it to be darker and then smudge again. And then for this little edge over here where the paper doesn't go away the entire way, I'm just going to take this edge, reline it up, and add a little bit more color right there. Then I'll repeat these same steps as I go down the page. I can even flip this over so I get a backwards edge. Or, as I go, I can tear off just a small amount of paper to make a different shape. It's up to you to experiment with different kinds of color combinations and different shapes that you can tear with the paper. It's okay, too, if your aurora designs overlap just a little bit. So there's the start of another one. And when I get to the bottom, I can check and look how my overall picture is looking. I've got right now 3 different layers. I don't think I'm all the way done per se. I would keep adding a few more layers till I get closer to the trees. But one of the things that I do want to remember to do before I'm all the way finished is to add some of the same colors in this reflected area. So this area down here is representing some kind of body of water like a lake or a pond. So I'm going to add little tiny lines of the same colors that I've used in the top of my picture, reflecting in the water to make it look like the auroras are showing up in the reflection like they are above. So I've got some of the same colors I've used so far, and then I could take a mostly clean finger and begin to blend them sideways to look like water. And there's different ways to do this. Your little shapes or lines could be different than mine. Something you could experiment with could be little tiny dashes of color. In general, the more time you take and the more careful you are with any given part of an art project, the better it will look. And it's okay that different people's artworks look different. Your artwork doesn't have to look the same as the person next to yours. But I do want you to try your best and for you to be working the whole time. I think I'm going to blend these a little bit, and I like the way those little lines are looking. I think it makes it look even more like water than what I did at first. So I might go back and add some more of these little lines to make it look like I have this reflection. You'll want to double check as well that your name is on the back of your paper, and you'll want to pay attention for any special directions related to cleanup. Try your best, and I'm very excited to see your drawings.